Yep. Good evening, everyone, to the dozens and dozens around the world listening. Welcome to the Brain Dead Sports Podcast, featuring the informative and eloquent Christopher and yours truly, Ron. No last names required. And this is our first outing, so we have no idea what we're doing, but we plan to
Facts.
discuss a wide variety of sports topics, and hopefully we can move on from here to bigger
Yeah, and I
and better
mean, let's
things.
just, yeah. Anyways, first topic.
Noah Lyles.
Yes. But some people call it ignorant. By some people, we mean Americans.
Yeah, really just Americans. He also got a Donkey of the Day
Yeah.
by Charlemagne the
That's,
God.
wait, what, really?
Mm-hmm.
I actually didn't see that one. But yeah, so what are your thoughts? Like,
Well, okay, first of all, let me just start by commending Noah Lyles on his achievement. Noah Lyles is the third fastest man across 200 meters, and
mhm,
it's not easy for you to win, to go from being a 200-meter athlete to winning the 100 meters at the World Championships, so which will likely be the topic of
definitely.
discussion going forward. And
Hmm.
the 200 meters as well as the 4x1, albeit the 4x1 is a team event, but nonetheless, it was a great achievement, and he deserves all the praise and recognition that any great athlete in their field deserves. Now, the problem
Hmm.
is that since the World Games has ended, when there was the final press conference, is that I actually don't know the context in which it came up, but I guess he was alluding to the fact that other sports, the media actually bring way more attention to other sports, specifically
Hmm.
American sports like basketball and the NFL, and I guess you would say a less extent the MLB and so on, than they would
Hmm.
to persons who are representing the United States at the international level,
The
like
international level. Yeah, exactly.
like a Simone Biles
Hmm.
or somebody like that. So he said that it hurts him to see people in the NBA have world champion on their head, specifically referring to the caps. When you win the NBA championship, you have world
Yeah.
champions, Denver Nuggets, and so on.
Hmm.
So by contrast, we know for a fact that if you win at the Olympics or the World Games, you are the best in the world because you compete like literally every country unless they're banned
Truly.
competes
Yeah.
in these games. So
Hmm. Agreed.
what what Stephen A and others are saying is that he's ignorant, and um they said that he should understand that the NBA has long been established as the best league in the world, and thus is representative of the best internationally in terms of, like they said, 1/3 the NBA is made up of quote
Hmm.
unquote international players, and thus why they're called world champions. But I actually don't agree with their take. I don't think his take was ignorant at all. I don't know. I feel like they're being very harsh.
I feel
One
like
thing I
Stephen
will.
A's statement, like calling
Mhm.
him ignorant, was ignorance itself, to be honest. I
Yep.
mean, like, if you think about it, I can understand where the players are coming from, like the NBA players who are
Hmm.
outraged. I can
Hmm.
understand what they were saying because someone was pointing out, right, that, for example, with football, they they have the UEFA Champions League, they have the Premier League, and when they
Hmm.
win those, they're called either champions of Europe or Premier League champions. They're not
Hmm.
called champions of the world. But I think from these players' perspectives, they look at the NBA as the pinnacle of all achievement in basketball, whereas
Yeah.
in football, the highest achievement is the World Cup. So in basketball, they don't there's a prestige on the international level.
Hmm.
So I think that's in a way where they consider the NBA like their top trophy, so they're world champion. So
Hmm.
I do think it's weird, but at the same time, I can get where they're coming from, but that doesn't make what they're saying right. It doesn't make them
Yeah,
world
yeah,
champion
yeah.
just no matter how prestigious the award is. You have to compete internationally to to have that title of world champion.
I actually think that this discussion came up at the right time because the FIBA World Cup is going on right now. So
And the
technically,
Americans actually considered that a second-rate competition, to be honest, if you actually look at it. Like
yeah,
you don't
yep,
really have the big stars coming out to play for their country on the international level anymore.
yeah,
The last time we actually saw a really great US team was probably the two Olympics after the 2004 collapse, I
yeah.
would say, if I
And they
remember
also
correctly.
lost FIBA around that time as well. So
Hmm.
that
Yeah,
that caused them. So they had
exactly.
'08 and 2012. Even 2016 had a strong team in Rio, I believe. Korea and so on were there as well.
Hmm.
But since then, the teams have been significantly weak, albeit still successful. This might be the weakest since
Yeah, so I think the US's
pre-Dream Team.
dominance at the international level has sort of made international competitions for basketball sort of obsolete, if that's the word.
Yeah,
But I do think it's wrong, regardless of how prestigious the NBA trophy might be for these players compared to their international trophies. It still doesn't make them, world champions, if you get what I'm saying.
yeah, yeah. I mean, Steve, Charlemagne actually had an interesting take where he said that even though technically Noah Lyles might be correct, the question you need to ask why use that time to
Mm-hmm.
make the statement, given the fact that, okay, like if he didn't make the statement, the headlines about him would have just been, you
Mm-hmm.
know, this great champion or whatever, as opposed to these
Yeah,
people calling him ignorant and so on. So that's a valid question. But at the same time, sometimes when you achieve things, it's the only time people would give him the sufficient media coverage to even call into question media bias because I think he actually won the battle by losing because the only reason he was a topic on First Take was because he spoke about basketball, which is ironic because it's the exact point he was making. Like you're the champion of the world,
do
but
you think that his comments, do you think that they were called for at the time, like him just taking a shot at the NBA? Do you think it was called for?
I don't think he should
I
have called
personally
out
don't
the
know the
NBA.
context. I
Yeah,
don't know the context. Like I don't know the question that was asked. All I've seen are the clips, like clips of the
yeah,
interview. I don't know what was
yeah,
leading up to him speaking on that. But
yeah.
I guess the way he said it, that was kind of funny to me too. That he said
Yeah,
he
I,
loves
I
the
don't
US
even
at
think.
times
Yeah, I
while
don't even think
representing the
he
US.
was. I don't even think he was that serious about it. I think he was more on the
True,
trolling side.
true.
But
Yeah.
what I think he should have
But there's a
done,
lot of truth in what he said though. That's the
yeah.
thing about it.
The thing is, somebody had said if he had said this about the NFL, nobody would have cared because it would have been an absolute fact. Because not only do most countries not play American football, it's literally called American
That's
football.
true. That's
But
definitely true.
I feel like the NBA is probably the sport he watches the most outside of his
I
own
think for
sport.
NBA
So
players
that's
as well, they see that the best players are international players as well. And they
yeah,
think, since they play in the NBA, since it's more inclusive now to other countries,
yeah, yeah. The criticism would have been
yeah,
more valid for the NFL or even
yeah,
hockey,
definitely.
or but contextually, I think on a deeper level, the whole thing of American sports calling themselves world champions has to do with more about how Americans view their own product and themselves than it actually has to do with it being a factual statement. Because the only reason when you win the MLB, you're not called the champions of the world is because it's not an American sport and it's more like an adopted sport. But every quote unquote American sport, you're called the champions of the world for. And I think that says more about how America views their own
Yeah,
product, their
that's
own
true.
athletes, as opposed to anything else. Because if you notice, no other sport, no other country outside of America does that. Like, even if we were to agree, like, okay, let's say that when Ronaldo and Messi were in La Liga was the best league. Nobody would say that
Yeah.
winning La Liga, you would be the world champions. Now
Champions of the
everybody's
world,
saying
yeah.
that the Premier League is the best league. Winning the Premier League, no one says Man
Mhm.
City is the champion of the world. Well, they're champions of Europe, they're
And
champions of
even
England.
football, they do it in such a way to like include the world because if you think about it, they have a competition where you can be world champion at the club level. That's
Yep.
why they made the Club World Cup, right?
Yeah.
So that
Yep.
you have the champions from Europe, the champions from all of these other areas to come together and play for the title of Club World Champion.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think though it what he said isn't wrong. He probably should not have singled out a specific league, but more of the concept.
Definitely.
But I don't think he's wrong, and I do believe that people, not just because even within athletics in itself, you could if you win the pole vault, you're nobody talks about you, but if you win the 100 meters, you'll get your 2 days of popularity, and then after the games, everybody forgets you exist. But to some extent, we
hmm
need to put more respect on persons that achieve literally, like without a doubt, we know for a fact they're the best in the world because
Yeah.
they're
They
compete.
actually
There's
go against the world. Yeah.
the world. There's no metric. And if you're one of those people that believe that the humans are the only people that exist in the universe, the only living creatures, then those people are literally the best in the universe. So we know for a fact that is the best in the world when you win 100 meters. But I mean, I understand why thing. However, I would just as an aside, KD is way too sensitive. Like KD, like all the other NBA players
No,
were
it
kind
was
of like, no bugging,
like
but
sending some
KD
laughing
just
emojis because I send this
like
brother some help.
but like KD's just so sensitive. That's why Ryan had to roast him, Ryan the comedian. But
Like
yeah, so
I thought it was kind of funny to be honest. Like I know people think KD is too sensitive, but I actually really just love his like response to things.
yeah. It's actually amusing, but you know
Very.
when he says it, he feels that way, even though it's funny to you. That's like that's his
To be
thing.
honest
But
with you, the first time I saw the clip, like I really didn't know what to think. I just laughed because of like just
yeah,
how he said it. World
tonally,
champion of what?
yeah,
The United States?
yeah, tonally, it was just
I think it
you
was
know
it was great because he said all of this while wearing the US jersey. And
exactly like
it was just amazing, man. It was funny.
it's a bunch of irony bombs in one. But yeah, I mean, from here we could go on to uh something that's definitely not international, which could be the CPL. And of
Ah, right.
course,
Of course, something more local, definitely. So how we feeling about the
domestics.
Warriors this year?
Um, okay, let me say this and quickly.
Just a quick disclaimer, right? The reason
Yeah,
why we're talking about the Warriors is because we are from Guyana,
yeah,
to our
yeah,
like two international viewers. You might want us to include some other
yeah.
franchise, but
The two of the
sorry,
dozen.
we apologize. But
Yeah,
yeah, how do we will get there eventually, but first of all,
yeah.
let's focus on the Warriors.
Well, every year when I look at the Warriors team, I always think, wow, this team is slightly worse than the team we had last year. However, I don't know if that's necessarily the case this time around. I do believe
Mm-hmm.
that
Definitely.
the team is well balanced in turn, and I also think that the players that we had in years past, with the exception of Tahir, are actually
Mm-hmm.
better than they were before, and Hemraj. But I and maybe Odin Smith as well, but they haven't really their drop in
Mm-hmm.
performance has not really factored into our play so far. But I think Hetmai is more mature. I think Romario Shepherd is actually turning out to be a very competent all-rounder
He has been so good for us. Like
at
I think
in
he's been
I,
our best player so
yeah,
far.
even in the
It's
last
only been
series we
two
played
games,
against
but
India for the West Indies, he was
definitely,
very good
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah, so I think he's on a rich run of farm and
He's
hopes
really developed as a finisher, in my opinion.
and a
Like,
tail end bowler as well.
yeah. Like if you compare his performance last year in the death to now,
Yes, a
completely
big
different
gap.
player.
Because he was actually getting rinsed internationally and domestically, and
Yeah,
then I feel like he invested a lot in himself in terms of fitness and so on. So he's been really good. I think he's
yeah. I
also a
love when
leader.
players bounce back like this, to be honest, especially when
Yeah,
they're so close to home, you know?
yeah. And Hope, I believe it has improved tremendously in T20 cricket in general.
Yep.
And I
Should
think
be
is that
playing all
he
three formats at the international level, in my opinion, but that's for another
definitely,
discussion.
yeah, I think he's improved at the right time.
Hmm.
This what's this guy's name? Azam.
Yeah.
Um,
I know a lot of
he
people were skeptical about him, but I
at
remember the
first,
last
yeah.
playoff series, not series, but the last playoff game, the first one against Barbados. I
Hmm.
think it was him and Cornwall who really destroyed us. So
The
I actually
irony.
was yeah. I actually thought he was a good pick for us, to be honest. Like he can hit the
Yeah,
ball really hard and just see ball, hit ball, that kind of play. I thought we really needed a player like that.
yeah, that's just gonna put the
So,
attack, the pressure back on the
mhm.
bowlers. He's
Yeah,
been good.
definitely.
The young guy who came in, I heard that Gorbaz is coming back,
Stein.
but I'm not sure
Yeah,
if that's
that's the
true.
thing too. Like, we have. I think our batting has improved significantly, and we don't even have our best batsman as yet. I
Yeah,
I think Gorbaz will be back in time for the playoffs, hopefully.
yeah. So
So,
I think, given the fact that the back end of the tournament is going to be at home and we always have a great turnout at National Stadium, I think the players
mhm,
are maturing at the right time. My
yeah,
only concern is that in the past, like maybe 3 seasons back, Tyre was like this bowler that you could guarantee 2 wickets
I
at least
agree. I agree.
economically.
I think it's only been two games, but like it's been
Mm-hmm.
a shaky start from him. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of his athleticism, I think, you see the catches he's making still. I think he's fine in that department. But can he give us like a guaranteed 2 or 3 wickets a game like, he usually does?
Mm-hmm.
And Moti, I
I,
don't know, maybe he's still a bit, not on the experience side, but I do think he has world-class potential.
Yeah, I think Moti is going to come good. It's just a matter of playing on the right pitches and so on. But I think the problem is too with Moti is that if Tyre is
Yeah.
bowling and Tyre has been conceding a lot of runs, there's no pressure on the batsman now when they're facing Moti, in sense that if you build up pressure
Yeah.
at one end, like if Tyre was
Mhm.
being economical, they might be forced to go after Moti, because I find when you try to go after Moti when he gets most wickets, especially in the first win that we had. Almost every time he got hit for six, the next ball, he got the person because he made the adjustment. But if there's no pressure on the bowler from the other spinners, then there's that. But I feel like the good thing about Moji is that when he comes in, as Guyanese would say, he's throw back, and he also is a good fielder. And I think this is probably our best fielding unit that we've had since we've
Yeah.
probably since the first time when we had like Guptill and these people, because we have the
Yeah.
St. Clairs who are very athletic, Chemo Paul who has improved tremendously in all
He was
facets.
so good last game. I hope he's
Yeah,
okay with
bowling,
that
batting,
injury that he
fielding.
seemed to pick up.
And he came back on the field after that strain they said it was,
Yeah.
and took an amazing
Yeah.
catch on the boundary. So I feel like we have probably the best fielding unit since. But at the end of the day, when we get into discussing other teams, we would see what other teams pose a threat. But I think at this stage it's just mental for
Yeah.
the franchise. We have the as we currently have the equal. Well, I guess Trinidad probably has one more win now after their last
I
game.
think I
But
think St. Lucia's at the top of the table last time I checked. I'm
no,
not
I'm
sure if it's
talking
still.
about the there's this statistic when we won our last game, we had tied Trinidad for the most wins in
Oh, oh,
CPL history.
oh, right, right,
So
right,
it
right,
goes to
right.
show that it's
Hmm.
really not. We never had issues winning games. It's just winning the game, the big game,
Zerly is
and
just, yeah.
yeah, it's just a matter of
Hmm.
getting over the hump. So which team would you say, taking patriotism out of it, is the team that either in the event that Guyana is the best team in your book, what would be the second best, or what is the
Um,
best if not Guyana?
I always hate to say it, but TKR is always a competitor. You always have to look at them as a competitor. I think I like how the Kings look as well,
Yeah,
especially with players like Alzari and Faf and those guys.
yeah.
And
And
TKR
I
with Puran in such top form right
great
now
form
is
there.
always scary. Yeah.
Yep. I mean, I actually think TKR's biggest weakness is probably the fact that it's Pollard and Bravo. But for some weird reason, I feel
Same.
like
Same. I believe the same, but they always have cricket is more mental. And I agree
mhm,
on a level, and those guys have a ton of experience.
mhm.
So we'll see. But I do think it may become a liability for them eventually. Hopefully it's this year.
Yeah, hopefully indeed. Uh, did you see the incident with Bravo and Andrew Fletcher?
Yeah, that he Fletcher had to have a tremendous amount of self-control in that moment, honestly.
Yeah,
I don't know what was leading up to that, but
you
I
know the
don't think it was called
backstory.
for.
I mean, what I will say, regardless of the backstory behind it,
Hmm.
Bravo is one of our um senior cricketers in the region. Even though he's retired now from international
Agreed.
cricket, he is literally
Should
like
definitely carry himself better.
good for some young players, Bravo, who have never seen Curtly Ambrose or
Yeah.
somebody. Bravo, and these guys are the cricketers they grew up on. For somebody, even as in Hetmeyer's age in Rutherford, and
Yep.
even younger to like a Sinclair. They know they only know Bravo and these guys. And if these are how these guys are acting against their own West Indians in domestic tournaments in a game that in the grand scheme of the tournament probably does not matter that much. Like, it wasn't called. I mean, Bravo is
Yeah.
always an energetic character, always dancing and stuff, but I feel like you didn't need to um invade the guy's personal space like that.
Yeah, that's true. And in terms of competition you were talking about, I completely forgot about the Royals, to be honest. I think they've been good.
Yeah, the Royals always, I mean, the Royals have won
And
the
Brandon
tournament
King could go
twice.
off for the Tallowers at any point. So I think every team is a bit balanced in a way. It's just that I think the Patriots on paper too have a good team, but they just haven't found that form as yet.
True. I actually think the two teams that probably got cold starts, not necessarily due to personnel, but due to just circumstances, are the Patriots and the and St. Lucia, and that's because well, in the case of St. Lucia, all their home games were rained out, so they did not
Hmm.
get the opportunity to get that necessary home game advantage, those home points, etc.
Hmm.
And is also, like the hot and cold thing where you go out on the field and you might get in, you might feel good running up, and then rainfall stops the game, whatever, whatever, and it obviously is
Yeah.
going to play an effect on them psychologically. And now, in the case of St. Kitts, they're losing home
Yeah,
games,
when you put
which
down so many home games, it's yeah,
yeah. So but St. Kitts, if Evan Lewis gets going, or even Fletcher
definitely.
occasionally,
And
and
Rutherford
I
at the
mean
end,
Rutherford, and they also have Raidu in that team. That team could
yeah,
potentially be exceptionally dangerous. But good thing for us, they haven't been that explosive so far.
yeah. I do love the balance with this Warriors team though, and I do think they can go all the way.
Yeah.
But we just need to be smart. Like Odin as well, when it comes to bowling, he just needs to stop it out wide. Those wides that hope he
Yeah,
can
yeah.
return to the form that he had like I think it was 2 years ago where he was one of our key players.
Batting as well.
Yeah.
I think Odin in one of the games he didn't seem to be particularly in the game mentally. Like there was that game when Shepard reprimanded him for not running hard, and it was like the last two or three deliveries in the innings.
Mhm.
And I don't know if he was not
Yeah.
mentally in the game or if he was upset because of something that was going on in the dressing room. But whatever it is, he needs
Mhm.
to shake that because currently our team is not firing on all cylinders because Hemraj hasn't done anything so far. Odin Smith has not been good, and Tyree has been a bit
Mhm.
below par. So it's a case where if we could get two out of those three to
I like to
fire.
think that in the second game, the pitch wasn't friendly against spin.
Mm-hmm,
So since both Moti and Tahir had a problem, but
mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think I think we have a lot more of the tournament left, and hopefully our spinners can get back to form.
Yeah, I think what I would hope is that we everything goes well, semifinals, final, assuming we get there, because in the
I
past we
do
have
think
been
that,
perfect early on and not
mhm,
perfect in the end.
yeah, true.
But yeah, overall, I mean, it looks poised to be a good tournament, and hopefully, everything goes well. Any final thoughts on the CPO?
Not really. It's we year. That's
Yeah,
all.
this year is weird indeed. Okay, well, from there we could go on to, well, objectively, the most viewed sport worldwide. Um,
Yeah.
that is football.
Don't let the
So
Americans hear you.
yeah,
I'm,
yeah,
I'm, I'm
yeah,
I'm just joking. I'm just
yeah,
joking.
yeah. I mean, we could probably go from there, and we could probably start off
Yeah.
with the with transfer window, um, and then go from there.
Yes, definitely.
So what are the big
So
standouts for you?
the big standouts for the transfer window will always be Kylian Mbappe for me.
Yeah.
As a Real Madrid fan,
Mm,
I do think he's the best player in the world. But in
mm,
order to fully claim that status, I think he needs to take that step sooner than later.
mm,
As PSG as well, I think they're building a team that doesn't really include him. They're
mm,
building for a future without him as well. Seeing the signings that they've made, the players they've let go, and everything.
mm,
So I think it's time for both of them to part ways.
mm.
However, he seems locked in to finish the last year on his contracts, and
Well,
anything
it's
can
very
happen
lucrative.
from between now and the next window. So
Yeah, true.
I've
Um,
actually learned not to put too much faith in Mbappe right now, given what happened the last time.
yeah. I mean, I guess with Mbappe, it's a unique situation because I would call myself a part-time Real Madrid fan because I don't watch as much La Liga as I should. But
Yeah.
the thing is, with Mbappe, I think it's a unique situation because usually when players like you might have issues with players leaving like childhood clubs or clubs that they were spend like
Mm.
extended periods of time at, but I feel like PSG and Mbappe have a strange relationship because of the powers that they gave him as a player, as well as the um like this whole like him being the next big French player and is like PSG is like
That's true. And
in
they even
Paris
had the
and
president involved in this situation in
yeah,
order
it's
to
even political.
convince
Yeah,
him to renew as well. So I
it's
think they
like
just brought out the entire package for him.
mhm.
And
He's
so
essentially
yeah,
like France's biggest tourist attraction. So if you let
yeah,
him out
definitely.
of it's
And
like
I
a
mean, he
tourist
is the
attraction
best
within
player
a
in the world,
tourist
like I
attraction.
said. So
Yeah,
naturally, you'd want to do everything in your power to keep him.
yeah.
But I think for him, not just because I'm a Real Madrid fan and I
Mm.
become, I think the best players should always make a move to the best situation for them. And I think his best situation would be Real Madrid at this point in his career.
The interesting thing is that the problem with Mbappe is that everybody acknowledges I think Mbappe is the only player that has played their entire career um in France and has the respect that he has, and it's because of how well he's played at the international level. because most people do
Mhm.
not respect players who've only played in quote unquote lower leagues or farmers leagues and so on, unless they either have Champions League European success or international success. He's gotten one or two. And I think in order to truly cement himself, as you rightfully said, he needs to move not only to the best situation for him as a player, but the best situation means not just the opportunity to win, but playing in a more recognized league, in a more recognized shirt with greater competition. So
And he
I
needs to
think
win the best club competition as well. I would
true.
think.
Yeah.
He has
Yeah.
been very successful in league at the moment. I don't think there's much more for him to accomplish there.
Yep. I don't think there was much more for him to accomplish even when he was at AS Monaco, to be quite frank. Like at AS Monaco, I don't know if they won. I think I have a feeling they won the league 1 year with that
I
team with
can't recall
Mbappe
myself, but they had a
and
really good
Bernardo
team back then.
Silva and yeah,
Yeah.
and when Bakayoko was actually a good player. They also had
Hmm.
Fabinho and
Fabinho, yeah.
yeah. So that team went to the
Yeah, that
semis
was
of
a great
the
team.
Champions League as well. That's like the Ajax team of
I
oh
think the furthest he's ever
2018.
made it in the Champions League, I think, was the final, right, where they lost to Bayern.
Yeah, 1-0 when Kingsley
Yeah,
Coman, who
and
was a former player of
wasn't he
theirs, scored.
injured? Wasn't he injured? I think it was the game before or during the finals where he came off the bench.
I don't know if he was injured, but I think Neymar missed a few games in that tournament. Like that tournament was not
I
as
do think that was Neymar's best year as a PSG player, though.
yeah,
That 2020 season. Yeah, if I recall correctly.
yeah.
Speaking
But
of Neymar, what do you think about him leaving Europe at, you know, relatively young?
I don't think anything about Neymar's career makes sense when you look at it in retrospect. So when you look at it, he probably should have never left Barcelona to go to PSG if he had gone. Yeah, because that probably was not the best move for his career at the time. Um, he was going from at that time an extremely competitive league. Atletico Madrid was doing well, Sevilla was doing well. Real Madrid still had the BBC and
Yeah.
Cruz, Modric, and the whole gang. And then you had Suarez and Messi. And if you look at it now in retrospect, Suarez was essentially at the back end of his career.
Yeah.
Messi is not there anymore. He could have essentially been the guy in Barcelona now, as opposed to leaving Europe at what, 30, 31.
Yeah, but
And
I think mhm. Continue, sorry.
yeah, no, continue.
No, the thing is, I don't think Neymar ever had like that interest in being the main guy, to be honest.
Mm,
And well, I think even at 31 right now, despite his injury history, I think he still would have attracted the attention of many clubs across the world, including the Premier League.
hmm
So I think Neymar has always just probably been about the financial aspect more than the
mm,
competitive aspect. And at the end of the day, this is how these players make their living. So I have no
yeah.
problems with it, to be honest.
Yeah, it's still a job. Like no matter how
Yeah,
you twist it and turn it, some people are motivated by legacy and these kinds of stuff. Well, you can't fault
yeah,
someone who might have come from
exactly.
abject
Mhm.
poverty for we can't fault them for pursuing the money. But I guess as a sports fan, you always project your own
Yeah.
expectations onto a player. Like when you watch them from mixtapes when they're young, like Neymar, who
Hmm.
finished top 20 in the Ballon d'Or voting at like 17, 18, playing,
At
yeah,
Santos outside of Europe. So
which is something that never happens. I guess you always thought that,
yeah.
yeah, this guy is a guy that's going to challenge uh Messi and Ronaldo, and it never truly materialized. And I guess too, there's the whole thing of him never really um
But even when you think about it, right, from the competitive standpoint, I
mhm,
do think Neymar is still undisputably the third best player of our generation.
yeah,
So I don't think his career has been a complete flop. maybe in
No.
terms of, him carrying the next generation, I guess. But in terms of
Mm,
the last generation,
yeah.
I think he's had a good career. Better than good, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I would agree with you. I remember one time about 3 years ago, maybe 2 years ago, when he was getting some extreme criticism for constantly getting injured at the same time
Hmm.
and these kinds of stuff. And someone pointed out that Neymar in any other generation would be the best player possibly in that time period because
Yeah,
of the absurd amount
definitely.
of goal contributions that he has. And like you
Hmm.
don't realize that this guy has nearly 500 goals. It's like crazy given that he is this guy that's viewed somewhat as a disappointment. But I am inclined to what I would have liked to see though. I mean, we don't know what the Saudi league will be like in 3, 4 years. But like in my mind, I would always imagine that the Saudi league is gonna be there next year, if that makes sense. So like if he
Hmm.
could have given it just
Yeah,
one more season in a different league,
that's
especially
true.
in the Premier League, it would have been interesting to see just to see like almost like a social experiment, a sports experiment, what Neymar would have been like
Hmm.
in another league, or if he could have given. I
Yeah.
mean, he's already accomplished a Champions League, but to see him one more time in the Champions League, just to see, what it would have been like.
I mean, where would you have liked to see him if he'd stayed in Europe?
That's actually a very good question because as a Manchester United fan, there are a lot of Manchester United fans who are interested or excited at the prospect of
I don't
Neymar
think he would have
coming.
been a fit, to be honest.
Good, but I actually don't think he would have been a good fit unless you put him on the wing. And given
And you
Neymar's
can't put
injury record,
Rashford at striker, to be honest.
yeah, you
Like
would have had to put him on the
from what
right
we're
wing
seeing.
or put him in
Hmm.
the 10 and then drop Bruno further down the pitch. Or if you I don't know what would have happened, but it would have been interesting to see it because Manchester United loves theatrics and headlines. But I don't think I would have I would personally would not have bought Neymar for Manchester United. But
See?
I
Hmm.
don't know, maybe who knows? Maybe at Arsenal, it would have been
What
interesting to
about
see it
Chelsea,
because
to be honest? I don't think Neymar is the fit for Arsenal and their project since they're like completely
focusing
banking
on
on young
youth
players
and
right now.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think they're building something. So
Mm.
I wouldn't go splurging money on Neymar. But what about Chelsea? They
The
have a
problem
young
is with
project as well, but I think
but
he'd fit
it's not
much
a
better
winning
there, to
project
be
at the
honest.
moment.
Definitely not, but it would still give the fans something to cheer about, and maybe who knows, get
True.
them closer to that European spot.
Yeah, but I guess that's the case too. I think he probably looked at the situation too in odd leagues. Like, okay, if you're going to Germany, it's only Dortmund or or Bayern Munich. And one, Bayern Munich doesn't spend a lot of money, and Dortmund does
Mm,
not spend a lot of money either. So I
yeah.
guess those weren't really options.
And
And
back to
on
Barca wasn't an option either because of their financial situation as
good,
well.
and I'm pretty sure he would not have wanted to play for another Spanish team. So it's a case
Yeah.
where the options probably weren't as prevalent as we might like to think sometimes when it's
And
time
the
to move
Serie
from
A, like their financial situation hasn't been
is
too good either. We
yeah,
see AC Milan had
yeah.
to sell one of their best players just to make ends meet, so to speak.
Yep. Yep, and it's the same with Inter. Inter's
Hmm.
situation might be even worse because Inter doesn't even have a
True.
sponsor. So it's interesting that during their resurgence, for a quick segue, is when they encountered the pinnacle of their financial struggles because like three
Yeah.
years ago it was just Juve competing on the European level, but now
Hmm.
almost all of the teams that they have within their top four are teams that last season you could have said could have won the Champions League, Napoli, Inter, AC, and
Yeah.
it's like all of these teams are struggling financially, but a testament to the market. I actually think that this was probably one of the least interesting transfer windows because the fact that Victor Osimhen is still at Napoli is a testament to the fact that a lot of teams either recently signed players in most of the needed positions that they have, and two, the financial situation in world football is not as good as it once was because I believe 2 years ago, 150 million Victor Osimhen, like
Hmm.
5 or 6 clubs would have went up for that. I think United would have gone for that. Madrid would have gone for that. Barcelona pre financial issues would have gone for that.
I think Madrid is
Um,
just set on Mbappe right now, and they're just overlooking a lot of people. I would take so many strikers right now. I would have taken Harry Kane when he was available.
yeah,
I would still take Vlahovic, to be honest, even if it's on a
yeah,
loan
yeah.
deal.
hmm
I
I
take Osimhen.
I actually think the thing with Real Madrid is that Real Madrid is moving away from the Galactico strategy, with the exception of somebody like Mbappe, of course. I think
Yeah,
they're
with the
trying
exception
really
of
hard
Mbappe.
to invest in young players and develop talent as opposed to
Hmm.
even when they make big signings like a Jude Bellingham, it's still a 19-year-old signing. I don't think they want to go back to
Player.
that era of buying
Certain
five,
players are
six
e-
players in one window.
mhm. Even now, like you see how Jude has been playing for the last couple of games. I think that $100 million deal was looks like a bargain right now, to be honest.
Mm. Yep. It's
Of course, there's a
actually
lot of
he's
season
actually
left to play, but
exceeding my
he
expectations so
is so
far.
good. He's been so good.
Yep.
But I think
It's
I actually
it's
like the strategy that Perez has been using for the last couple of
mm,
years is scouting like Brazilian talents.
hmm
Like I think he probably just let Neymar slip and said never again. So
yeah, yeah, it's actually genius. It's weirdly enough, it reminds me of like something that teams used to do before, which was like, okay, promote like five youth players at once and just be like, okay,
mhm.
this is going to supplement our stars that we've purchased, like the class of 92 at United, like, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. You would have these young players, and it's like, yeah, some of them might turn out to be Phil Neville, but others,
Yeah.
Paul Scholes. So it's the case where I don't think teams do that anymore. Like a lot of teams are just cultivating players for the purposes of sale. Because even at United, who are
Yeah.
terrible at selling players, they sell like 99% of their youth players as soon as they're no longer
Mhm.
on the 21. It's like, yeah, you can go, you can go, you can go. Teams
Yeah.
are not looking to develop talent, which is actually admirable that even though he's not developing the talent from the youth setup, at least not all, he's looking at players, bringing them into the youth setup, and then bringing them into the first team. Or some of them are training
Mhm.
with the first team as soon as they're there, and within a few years, like Vinicius Junior, they're
Yeah.
top five best player in the world. So it's
Mhm.
actually a genius strategy, and he's definitely gonna go down as the greatest football what was he at that the
President.
president
Yeah.
rate? Yeah, it's like in terms like his roles like the president slash what was Van der Sar's role at Ajax, the president of football
Director.
operation, director of
Yeah.
football. It's like
Director
he's
of
like
football.
the ultimate president slash director of football in terms of
I
fiscal
like the transfer
management.
for Endrick as well.
Hmm
He'll be in Madrid till 2024, but I do think he's another young talent that's up and coming.
Yeah, delayed
So even if we
transfers
don't
is
get Mbappe,
interesting.
I think we'll be fine, to be honest.
I mean, at this rate with Jude Bellingham, you might not need to buy a midfielder for a very, very long time.
Yeah, we definitely don't need a midfielder, and I think we have this guy Arribas who just went who I think he plays now. I think it's for Girona or Almeria.
Hmm
Can't remember which one, but we have a buyback clause for him as well. There's another talented young midfielder in the academy, Nico Paz. I think he was registered as a La Liga player as well. So I think we're set once. once Cruz and Modric decide to retire, and there's Ceballos that we have on the contract as well for the next few years.
Well, the interesting thing about that is that I this is something I've thought about, and I actually wonder if it's logical for a player like Chouameni to remain at Real Madrid for like let's say the next
Yes, it is.
6 to 7 years from an individual player's point of view, like your
No,
own
I
career.
think like I don't know if you watched any of the games, like the last two games, but he's probably been like our second best player after Jude. So I think
Mm,
he will be the number six for many years, especially if Carlo continues to use this diamond formation.
mm,
Um, and I think that even if you use a midfield tree, a double pivot with him and Camavinga would be good with Jude as the number 10.
mhm.
But
That would
but that
then
also
put
leaves question what happens to
Valverde,
Valverde. But
yeah,
I've actually had a theory that Valverde should play a right back or like
as
try
and
like
then
place him
invert,
at right back. Yeah. Like so in an attacking position, he'd come up further and join the
yeah.
midfield because his ball carrying ability is, I believe, is one of the best in the world.
Mhm,
And he's also proven to be a good crosser, a good pass as well. You could just
mhm.
take a look at the Champions League final from 2022 where he assisted Vinny.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think Valverde has. I don't know
But
if any coach will do it, but Zidane tried him there. I think it was for a leg against Liverpool, and I think he was one of the best players on the pitch. So why not try it again?
I mean that's actually a great take. It would be quite innovative. But I mean the question would be whether or not Valverde would be willing to become a right back full time. Like if
I
that's
think he's a player
your
who does whatever the team needs. He's always done whatever the team needs, to be honest.
mm. Well, so is
Especially if
Camavinga,
Zidane were
clearly.
to come back, if when Carlo decides to leave,
Mm.
there's rumors that he will move on to coach Brazil next season.
I
So
think that's essentially a done deal. So I think
mhm.
that's going to happen for sure.
I think it might
And
be
even
either like my favorites would be either Zidane or Nagelsmann to come and replace him, and hopefully they decide they would the idea just try it, especially if we get Mbappe.
I think it would be nice to see Zidane there again, but I don't think that's what he wants. I believe he's just waiting for
To coach the
Deschamps to come
national
off
team.
and get
Yeah.
a national team opportunity.
But didn't he just renew his contract?
Who Didier Deschamps?
Yeah. I'm not sure,
Well,
but I
he
think
needs
he
to.
did.
He must have because his contract was supposed to expire after
Yeah.
this last World Cup. But I guess due to the success, I think what Deschamps wants is another crack at win the Euros because France is on an interesting run where they went to the Euro final, then they lost to Portugal, then they won the World Cup, then they got knocked out fairly early, I believe, around the 16 or quarterfinals, the
Mhm.
last Euros. Then they went to
Yeah.
the World Cup final again. They're a team that is very close to being a dynasty but they're
Mhm.
not. I think Deschamps wants at least one more international trophy to solidify his legacy. Because I believe if he
Yeah.
had won the World Cup, he would have definitely come off for sure.
True.
At least that's what I think. But Nagelsmann, on the other hand, I Nagelsmann is just like with transfers currently. The only reason
Mhm.
Nagelsmann doesn't have the job is because when people were shuffling, people had already
Mhm.
signed, had already gotten coaches, and then I don't think Nagelsmann wanted Tottenham because it's Tottenham, and then
I think there's a reason why he's kept holding out. Maybe he has the idea to join Real Madrid. Like you think he's
yeah,
just
I think
holding
he's
out
a
until
big
then?
project kind of
Yeah.
uh, manager. I think he's a bit more selective in his
Mhm.
but I don't know if that would be the best for him. I think when you're the coach of a team like Real Madrid, it's the biggest club in the
There's
world, you
always
need
pressure.
to,
Yeah.
yeah, you need to have ice in your veins in order to, because you could coach 2 games, the first 2 games of the season, win one and draw one, and the pressure would already be on because you didn't win both of
Hmm.
those games. So it's a
Yeah,
case
I agree.
where for a young manager who's essentially not won anything, but everybody recognizes his tactical brilliance.
Mhm.
It's a big step, and it could make or break his career.
Yeah. All right, let's head over to your beloved Manchester United. How do you feel about their performance early in the season?
Well, what I will say is this, right? It's been the overarching thing is that they've been shockingly bad. The first game, the thing that actually surprises me the most is that the first game was probably the worst they have played out of the three. Like they were really bad against Wolves, which in
Wolves.
there's a trend if you look at our performances against Wolves, we've essentially never beaten Wolves by more than 2 games for probably like the last 3 seasons straight. Like these games are always like so the score line is not the issue. The Wolves usually just sits back and grinds us out. While this time Wolves actually were running rampant throughout midfield, like they overran Casemiro because Casemiro was essentially left on an island by himself. Mount was physically bullied. Like, I don't think I've ever watched a game in which, like, you ever ask yourself, why don't midfielders just body Messi? Like, because he's so sharp, but it never actually happens. Well, this is the first time in my life I've seen a player who's not particularly tall, not particularly physically imposing, just get mauled in the midfield by more athletic, more, and it was ridiculous. The fact that we beat Wolves is sheer,
Luck.
not necessarily luck, but it's like Wolves themselves could not finish chances, and 1 or 2 chances that we had, we
But that
finished.
controversial no call at the end with Onana. What do you
Well,
think about that?
I think that objectively, you would have to say that that's a penalty. I don't think he punched
Hmm.
him, but it was a penalty. He
Yeah.
definitely did not punch him, but it was a penalty. I think the thing
Hmm.
that they probably considered was the fact that the player he clattered into did not actually touch the ball. But either way, I still think that's a penalty. And I actually am not entirely sure why Onana made that decision because Onana, in his 3 games for us, with the exception of that thing, there's nothing that Onana has done that's led to us conceding a goal. Essentially, all the goals we
Hmm.
conceded, no keeper would have saved them because they were so, like, the team was playing so bad when we conceded the goal that it's like he left the keeper there to just stand and let the ball roll in the net. So he's actually been very decent. He's been passing well and so on, but that was a I don't know, that's probably like a mental lapse. The second game that we played against Tottenham. Now that game for the first 35 minutes is probably the best we've played
Hmm.
all season because considering quality of opposition, I think that we had a similar issue. The problem is that I don't think Mount can be an 8. Like people, the English media keeps pushing this narrative that Mount was like this midfield that could do a little bit of everything. But I always imagine him as a 10.
I think he's a
And I
final third player. He's somebody that
exactly
could hold
this
the ball and, distribute in the final third, but he's not a player that would bridge the
bring the
game
ball.
from defense to attack, if you know what I mean. Like
Yeah,
he
he's not a
wouldn't
box to
control the
box.
game in the middle of the park.
He's not Frankie De Jong. And I think
Yeah.
that ultimately people keep saying that Ten Hag hasn't changed the way Manchester United has played. Ten Hag has fundamentally changed the way that we play. The problem is Ten Hag
His
is
eye
trying
for
to play
talent.
is I think it has to do with our ability to capture talent that he wants because I feel like this transfer window.
I think it's his ability to scout talent in general. I'm not saying he hasn't brought in talented players, but is it the
Mm,
players that you need? Like Hoyland is a player you need, right? Definitely. But
mm,
apart from him and Casemiro, you brought in a player like Anthony, a player who is the tricks and whatnot. But in my opinion, I feel like the way that Manchester United needs to play is you
mm,
need speed on the wings. You
mm,
need someone in midfield that can control the game. Like at
mm,
least two midfielders that could want to cover the defense and want to control the ball in the middle of the field and maybe
Mm-hmm.
want to, help to deliver that final pass to the forwards, right?
Yeah.
That, but in my opinion, Mounts has a lot of the same qualities as Bruno in the fact that they're both final third players,
Yeah.
and you still don't have that midfielder that can, just control the ball and bridge the gap between the defense and the attack.
Yeah. Well,
I
what I
think a
would say
player
to
like
you,
Ceballos
mhm,
would have been excellent at Man U, to be honest. And I think he'd fit right in with the project. But, Real ended up extending his contract, which was a
yeah.
surprise to me, since,
I
I thought he would have gone on to another club for more play time and whatnot.
what I would say is that to me this second transfer window, more so than the first, is where I question Ten Hag's eye for scouting talent. Because in the first transfer window, it's clear that Ten Hag, I believe that this is what Ten Hag likes. He likes a ball playing centre back who passes the ball off to like
Mm-hmm.
this deep lying midfielder who could
Mm-hmm.
somehow get the ball from just off the edge of the box to the final third and maybe pass it off to an attacking midfielder who then makes the decision. So essentially, like his Ajax team, he took Frankie de Jong, who was a centre back, turned him into this deep line midfield who breaks the
Mm-hmm.
line, passes off to like a Tadic or somebody, and then gives it to Ziyech on the wing or whoever. No, he
Rather
initially
than a
wanted
deep
the
line
young.
midfield, I think he actually made De Jong into like one of the best box to box players in the
Yeah,
world, to
yeah.
be
Well,
honest.
essentially a box
Yeah.
to box player.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, box to box because he's
Yeah.
bringing it from one box to the other
Mm-hmm.
box. Well, yeah. So it's a case. He
He
definitely
definitely
wanted
would have
Frankie
been
De
the
Jong.
best fit for the system. I
Yeah,
agree.
and no, for whatever reason, that deal did not come true. No, we needed defensive midfield. He tried to get Rabiot. No, at the time I didn't want Rabiot, but oh gosh, on God, I would prefer Rabiot to Mount right now. Like right now, I know that Rabiot would be doing a better job because Rabiot will not be bullied in the midfield. But anyway, we ended up with Casemiro, who was, is Casemiro. Great signing. We had Martinez, who I don't think he's actually playing that well this season since his injury, but his first season was very good.
But I think United, I either need someone to carry the ball from midfield to the final third, or
Mm.
somebody like a Cruz that could probably do it with their technical ability, like with their passes or whatnot.
Good. That's exactly what we were doing with um wow, I can't remember his name. The Danishman.
Ericsson?
Ericsson in the
Ericsson?
first season,
Mm-hmm.
in the first season pre-injury, like most of our goals were created by Ericsson lobbing the ball to Bruno,
So
Bruno to
now
somebody,
to Bruno, if you
that
think
kind of
about
thing.
it too, though.
Huh?
That's probably not a similar profile to Bruno, though, if you think about it.
I
Like
think
in
in his
terms of how
younger
they
days
play.
he was more like a Bruno player, but now I don't think he has the
Mm,
physical capabilities to run
yeah.
the thing. But I would say that his no Anthony was I'm not entirely sure what was the rationale. My issue isn't that they bought Anthony. My issue is that they paid 85 million for Anthony. I feel like in the beginning of the transfer window, Anthony was worth 40 million, but because they signed him in essentially like the
Four
last
out
two
of
weeks,
five.
yeah, it doubles because I actually did not have the time to replace the player. So that was my issue.
Yeah.
But this second transfer window here, I did not like the players that Ten Hag scouted. I don't think
I
that
don't think Anthony is a bad player. I just don't think he fits with the system right now.
no.
Because
And
United
I think
don't
he's
need a forward who just, who holds the ball on the wing like that. They need somebody like a
yeah.
Dembele that can go and beat a player, take them on one on one, and just deliver that final ball as quickly as possible, or cut in and score.
Ironically, our best chance in the last game that we played against was it Sheffield? Who was it that we played the last game? Forest.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, Forest we played. That last game against Forest, there was literally a sequence where Anthony's taking on a player, and you could tell that this guy is thinking, yeah, this guy's just gonna cut in and shoot. And he actually goes to his right and crosses the ball across the face. And because Anthony never does that, he called the defender out, the keeper out, and all of Manchester United forwards did. Nobody was there to get that ball because nobody thought that's where the ball was going to go. So it's like,
Mhm,
I always remember the season in which we missed out on signing Sancho.
mhm.
There was a fleeting moment in time where they almost signed Dembele, and I was like, why would we sign a hospital bed? But Dembele is actually exactly the profile. Maybe
He
the injury
is the kind of
record
yeah,
but the
definitely.
profile
Like
of player,
I was hoping you would have signed him last season, but then Xavi
yeah,
came and
yeah. I ironically, a lot of Barcelona players are probably what we need. Like, I think
De
even to
Jong.
Barcelona's central defense, I feel like a player like Koundé would be better for us. Ajiro would be better for us. Um,
Mm.
the young, a lot of I feel like the style that it's all from the Pep Guardiola school of it's all variations of Pep. So I
Mhm.
think right about now Arsenal has the better personnel to play that Pep-esque style. Obviously Pep himself
Yeah.
and Xavi now as well all have better players to do, but I don't know. We will see what happens. I'm really disappointed that we did not sell Maguire. Not because I hate Maguire that much, but I think that I don't know why you would not. Actually, the thing that upsets me the most is that we were offered 35 mil for Scott McTominay and we refused under the assumption that we would get more. And to me, that's just bad
Mhm.
business because we would have had
Yeah.
Amrabat, who would have been better than Mount in midfield once again.
That would have been
Uh,
a good double pivot, in my opinion.
with
Casemiro and
Casemiro and
Amrabat.
Rat. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we could have had Tobogo from in the central of as a because Varane is out now for 6 weeks. We could have done with a Tobogo in there.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think this is one of our worst transfer windows, which is interesting because we signed Bonana, who's class, and we signed
Yeah.
a young upcoming striker who knows how he's gonna turn out. I mean,
But
he hasn't.
the injury is just yeah, it just set him back a bit. But I
Yeah,
do think he'll be good when he plays eventually.
yeah. And one thing I would say, one final thing about United scouting, and this goes
Mhm.
um, pre Ten Hag, is that I don't like the fact that United, if they were to sign all the players they wanted to sign, we would probably have one of the shortest teams in the Premier League. I don't necessarily believe like, oh, yeah, your centre backs need to be like 6'5", but at the same time,
Mhm.
we wanted to sign Timber, who's 5'10". We signed
I think at
Martinez.
least one of them should be above 6 foot.
Yeah,
Like at least
this
one.
the most interesting thing about this window that this is probably the first time since Casemiro and when Ronaldo came back that we signed a player since Pogba that was 6 foot and above when we signed Hoyland. We've signed a series of players that are like 5'9", 5'10", between Pellistri
Mhm.
and Ahmad,
Speaking of which, since you
Sancho.
mentioned Ronaldo, right? This is
Hmm.
another thing like about Ten Hag that just worries me. He benched Ronaldo
Hmm.
because, for whatever reason. But then you brought
Everton.
in Wout Weghorst as
Hmm.
your striker, thinking that he would have bagged more goals than Ronaldo. Like, I don't understand the thought process.
Well, this is actually one that I might disagree with you a bit. Okay, let me preface this by saying that Weghorst is not, if Ronaldo's 45 and Weghorst is 24, Ronaldo would still be a better player than Weghorst. However, Weghorst was doing one thing that Ronaldo was not going to do for the vast majority of his career, and that was press. And I feel like at that time, Ten Hag was big on the pressing, and I don't think
Mhm.
we were pressing that much. But I would agree with you. I don't believe you should bring in a player just to press. I think,
Yeah. And
let's
in
say,
my opinion, I think in the previous season, like when before Ten Hag came, I think one of the hardest workers on the team was Ronaldo. So I don't think
yeah,
he would have had a problem pressing if he was instructed to do so. But I think the fallout with the manager and, obviously him
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
older,
yeah.
maybe he wouldn't have been able to sustain that. But I disagree with just bringing in Weghorst when you had the best goal scorer in history on your team,
Yeah,
regardless
that
of what age he was at that point,
was a
regardless of how out of form he
bad
was.
move.
I think, yeah.
Listen, I would not have kept Ronaldo necessarily, but I definitely
Mhm.
would not have brought in Weghorst. Like,
Yeah.
I think that I would have signed almost any other striker other than Weghorst because
Mhm.
Weghorst failed in the Premier League before. So his
Mhm.
performances in the
With a
Premier League
relegation team.
were not a surprise. It wasn't a surprise. I will say this,
Mhm.
right? The player that United needs, and this is probably a controversial take, but you rightfully pointed out we needed Dembele on the wing. But in terms of a striker in this transitional period where we're trying to stay in top four, and we needed like an Ivan Toney as our striker who was
Mhm.
gonna for sure give you
True.
20 goals. They're young
But then
enough
that
to still
controversy.
progress. Yeah, but then the controversy would have been too much. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I think United's still suffering from Greenwood as well. Like objectively having Greenwood, Rashford, and a striker as opposed to Anthony, Rashford, and
Yeah.
no striker.
Mhm.
Let's say Greenwood wasn't, well, allegedly beating and raping women. United would have been in a better position. I just don't think. I feel like the one time we produced a player from our academy in the last 25 years that was good, he turned out to be like, whatever. But I don't know. I feel like you rightfully pointed out that and the signing of Mount and to a lesser extent Anthony are probably Ten
Mhm.
Hag's biggest mistakes so far. Weghorst,
Yeah.
Mount now, who's out as well, injured, which is amazing. And that's bad. But I mean, we could segue from here onto your beloved Reds down
My
in
Premier League team.
yes, down in Anfield with that ridiculous accent.
Ah, oh my gosh. That Van Dijk red card, like that definitely hurts us.
Well,
But and we need that pivot. We've just been being rejected left and right. Latvia, Caicedo, all these players just nah.
Lavia is a
But I,
balling.
I do think Klopp should try playing Trent in midfield. I would definitely like to see that a bit more. We saw it a bit in preseason, but I think Trent could benefit a lot playing up the pitch. I think in the first two games he seemed to be good. He seemed to be improved, but then the last game he was a bit shaky again. So I would definitely like to see him play a bit further up the pitch and maybe buy another right back or play Joe Gomez there.
Um, what I will say for me personally with Trent Alexander-Arnold, and I've always maintained this, and I remember I watched an interview with Trent Alexander-Arnold, and he said that Klopp he was a midfielder by trade all through
Mhm.
his academy career. And Klopp told him, well, we
Yeah.
stack with midfielders, so the only position that we have open is right back. So if you want, you could either go on loan or you could do a job for us at right back. And then he had success at right back and he essentially became a right back. But
Mhm.
Trent has never displayed the defensive awareness, positioning, or the tackling ability to be an elite right back. And I don't
I
think
think
that.
in the best years on the clock, though, right? If you think
Mhm.
about it, whenever Trent went higher up the pitch, he always had like a Fabinho or Henderson covering
To
for him.
cover, yep.
Yeah, but you see, as those players got older, they weren't able to do so as effectively.
Yep.
So, and that just left Liverpool, the entire back line, a bit more exposed on that side.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. I also think that Van Dijk was playing like the best Premier League centre back ever for that one
I think
season,
I think
and
that
that
one
also
season he
aided.
had. Mhm.
aided Trent by covering some of Trent's mistakes.
That one season Van Dijk had was probably the best season for a defender in the modern era, probably.
Mm,
At least from what I've watched.
yeah.
But
I
I
think Van Dijk is still good. It's
like
just age,
think
maybe.
Soboslai and McAllister are good additions to the team. I look
Hmm.
forward to seeing them. And I think Diaz is out with an injury. I think he was subbed the last game. I missed that, sadly. But
I mean,
yeah, I do think
y'all
Darwin
used
needs to
all the
start
subs,
now.
so
Definitely.
mm, that's an interesting conundrum because with the advent of bringing in Gakpo and you have Nunes and you still have, I
Mhm.
would assume that the one thing I never understand, I never understood why Jose is still coming off the bench, but it's y'all have a lot of
Jota's been starting for like the first 2 or 3 games, but I think
he
he
didn't
should
start
come off the
against
bench, to be honest.
Newcastle though. Came off the bench against Newcastle, but
Was it, I think Gakpo started.
and Diaz
Who
and
started up
Salah.
front? I think, yeah.
Gakpo started
But
as the centre forward.
as soon as Nunes came on, you could see the difference that he made though with those 2 goals, especially.
Mm.
So I think even though he had a shaky first season, I think you need to bet on him. Klopp needs to just insert him into the starting lineup and just bet on him.
I don't think Nunes for a season was actually that shaky. I think he just suffered from
Mhm.
I think he just suffered from Erling Haaland comparisons because generally a striker of his age and the fact that he never played in a league anywhere as competitive as the Prem before would not have been criticized that much. Usually, like, it's like okay for a season,
To be
nothing
honest, he
special.
was a bit shaky in front of goal, to be honest. Like
Yeah,
there were chances that as a striker you should put away.
yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
he wasn't very good at putting those away.
True. But if you look at this guy from Chelsea, Jackson, he's looking
Hmm.
very Nunes like in his first few games, even though he
Yeah,
scored
I think it's just mental for the most part.
yeah,
Once they
yeah,
get used to the situation and everything, they'll be fine.
yeah. Because I think that the more finesse type finishes require confidence as opposed
Hmm.
to and composure as opposed to just blasting the ball into the net. But I
Yeah,
think Nunes is gonna be fine, and I would hope that Highland is fine as well in the upcoming
yeah.
seasons.
So anyway, let's go into our final topic, which is the Premier League predictions. So, what's your top five?
Okay, so given the fact that we're given these predictions after the season has already started, we have the benefit of the first few games. Now, I will preface my top five by saying I'm assuming that United cannot be this bad after 10 games. But I would say, well, at this rate, unfortunately, I think City is going to win a game.
Hmm.
Uh, Arsenal may finish second, but I probably was more sure about that prior to their last game because they're dropping points at a phase in which in the
Like,
last
why
season
is
they were
Gabriel not starting? To be honest,
yeah
like, is something going on there?
yeah third, and this is where it gets complicated for me. Now, I think based on Klopp's record, I would expect him to return to the top four this season. So I think he will probably finish in third. And fourth and fifth will either be United, Newcastle, or Newcastle United. And the reason for that is I think that Newcastle probably will not be that successful against the big six this season. It's in terms of wins, they might draw a lot of games, but I don't see them beating. I feel like when a team, like let's say when United plays City at Old Trafford, because they're playing City at Old Trafford, they might do just enough to get a win. I still think Newcastle's still in that phase where they can't seem to get over the hump against the original big teams. But the team that could spoil the whole party is Tottenham so far because how they started off their season, they seem to be playing a lot better than expected. They don't seem to be missing Kane as much, but I don't think this will last throughout the season because I don't think they will have sufficient goals to displace the teams. But
Mhm.
that's what I think. I do expect Chelsea to finish within the top eight,
Seven,
yeah,
seven for me.
as well. But teams
Funny
like
enough, I
Brighton
think we
and
agree
so on
on
could,
everything.
yeah,
Like that's actually very weird. I have the same top five, and I actually do think that Tottenham could be that surprise dark horse team to get into there as well, especially how
yeah,
they've been playing lately.
yep.
Madison has just been amazing so far.
United should
It
have signed
would be
him instead
kind
of
of
Mount.
funny if it would be kind of funny if, Harry Kane just left and Tottenham just ends up winning a trophy now.
Yeah, but they
Whether
did
it's
get
the
knocked
FA
out
Cup
of the
or the
Carabao
EFL.
Cup. They got knocked
Oh,
out of the Carabao
they
Cup
did.
today, I believe, or something like
All
that.
right, yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I didn't follow it up today.
Yeah, I was not
Yeah.
following it either. I just saw the result.
I got some notifications on my phone. I think I got one for the Brentford game.
Mm,
I think I turned on Brentford notifications for FPL last year.
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we have the same list. So I think that's it. That's it for the first episode.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was a pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll sign off here to our
Hmm.
dozens and dozens of fans. And hopefully by the 12th
Dozens or
edition of
half a
this,
dozens.
yeah, hopefully by 12th edition of this podcast, we'll have more than a dozen fans. All right. Sign off from Rod and Chris. Good night and goodbye.
But